And as soon as I know for sure we're set up to go live, I will say we're going live and I'll do the introductions and we'll get started.
Perfect.
And we are officially live on Facebook. It is Freedom Friday again for January of 2021. And as always, this is Coach April. I am the founder of One Light Ahead, thankful to be a vessel and a resource to guide light bulb moments for entrepreneurs, executives, and influencers, and especially in transformational leadership. And I've got the perfect guest for our transformational leadership discussion to start off our January. Mr. David Timms is the Dean at William Jessup University, and I'm going to let him share any fun things he right away is just bubbling out of him to share.
Thanks, April. Well, it's fun to be with you and with anyone who's watching and joining us today. And this is just one of those topics, transformational leadership. I live and breathe this stuff and have done for the last 3, 4, 5 years, probably 5 years now. And I am thrilled to be able to have this conversation because I think it's of critical importance at every level of our lives. So I'm just dying to jump in with you and explore some of this.
And I'm so enjoying your accent. So make sure everybody knows where that accent comes from so we can make sure we relieve that question right off the bat.
Yeah, if you're struggling, it's because I'm Australian and been in the US a long time, 20 years this time. And, I think I'm kind of stuck with it at this point in time. I apologize.
I love it. And I just wanted to compliment it and make sure that all those people are, wait, where's that sound? Let me get, I've learned in audiences, we have an audio, a visual, all the different aspects of the way we hear. And so one of the first questions I pre-warned you with, and then I'm going to, of course, add a few flavorful questions along the way, is what does that mean to you? What makes it so important for you, that transformational leadership?
Well, as I say, I'm thinking about this over the years. I've come to realize that leadership really makes a difference, whether it's in my marriage, or in an organization, in a community, and obviously even right now, in the midst of a global pandemic at national levels and even global levels, there isn't a single relationship I have that isn't and can't be positively impacted by transformational leadership. And I think everything thrives or fails depending on the leadership that's exerted. Marriages keep failing, and I think one of the key reasons they fail is failure of leadership. And of course, probably failure to understand what leadership looks like, even within that sort of intimate relationship between two people. So I firmly believe that leadership is not something we are necessarily born with. It's something we can grow with and learn. I think everybody has the capacity and maybe even the responsibility to be a leader at some level, and it can be learned. So this is not a conversation for you, me, and a couple of CEOs. It's you, me, and everybody, right? Because it matters to us all.
It affects us all. Absolutely. I love the way you say that. Educate us, though. When did you first know you were a leader? It's one of my favorite questions. I got introduced to quite a long time ago, and it's just really, really powerful awareness.
Oh, boy. I would say that I have been leading since the 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I had leadership roles in the 5th grade that I can point back to, and ever since. However, I would say that my genuine understanding of the purpose and the place of leadership is about 5 years old. 5 years. I've had 40 years of leadership without really knowing what I was doing. A lot of us lead because there's a buzz in leading. Mm-hmm. And I used to say, and I hear people still say, I have to lead, I'm born to lead. Well, I think what they're really tapping into is the thrill of having people follow them, the delight of being in control, the power rush that comes from leadership. And none of that really constitutes an understanding of leadership. So when I started really getting a handle on transformational leadership, only 5 years ago, I'd say I've been leading for the last 45 years, and I've understood what I'm trying to do, and I've been more intentional in the last 5. That's how leadership has changed so dramatically for me in recent times.
And first of all, let's go back to the five-year-old. What was your leadership role at 5 first?
I was a vice captain in my elementary school. We call it primary school in Australia.
Love
So
that.
that's a voted position, and my peers voted me vice captain of the school.
You took on that leadership well, wonderfully, right?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. And, whether I was captain of cricket teams and rugby teams or in other ways, I seemed to sort of bubble to that surface wherever I went at that point in my life.
And very much so naturally. And yet let's dive into that transformational concept, because and I also got the gift of getting to know you because you're the dean of one of the programs I'm blessed to have a master's degree in. Yeah. And you were actually one of the individuals at my graduation, so I'm even more immensely thankful. And yet I knew when that program launched for the leadership degree, through the coaching journey I've been on, I discovered that the missing piece of a puzzle is leadership. Coaching can be a waste of time if there's no leadership commitment in the process. Yeah. And so transformation was very powerful for me, and I'm deeply looking forward to how you want to share that.
Yeah, and I think maybe there are just a couple of steps, but the very first step for me was actually understanding what leadership is for. Mm-hmm. And leadership is not for me. And it's not, people they define leadership as just influence. And I'm going, that's not leadership. You can have really bad influence and really good influence, right? That's not transformational leadership. It's not the kind of leadership I want to exert. I want something deeper and richer. Mm-hmm. And I say to undergraduate students and graduate students, I'll say to anybody that listens to me, my faculty and the people around me, that the goal of leadership is to produce change and build lives. And that's it. And if we are completely sold out on that as the goal of leadership, whether that's in a marriage, producing change and building a life, I want Kim, my wife, to have a life that thrives. That means I'm going to have to produce some change, probably change in me, right? But I'm going to produce change because I'm committed to building her life. That's leadership. It's not getting her to do what I want her to do. And it's not getting what I want. It's producing change and building a life. That's true as a dad. I've got 3 boys. I have leadership conversations with them all the time. But I always know that my goal with my boys is to produce change and build their lives. If they were still behaving like 2-year-olds and they're 32, I would be very disappointed. I want to see them grow up. I want to produce change because I want to build their lives. It's not about my reputation as a dad. And I could extrapolate this in every sphere. So the biggest change, the starting point for me was going, what is the goal of all leadership? Not management, but leadership. Produce change, build lives. And I start there, and everything flows from that point.
And one of the courses, they talked about adaptive leadership and the awareness of the opportunity to not lead the way that everyone else has been leading. And to recognize that there is a way to transform our approach as much as there is in the understanding. What else would you want? What have you seen in your students and the people that you've been leading through these last 5 years, as well as your transformation, that's really stood out? If you were to say there was a specific leadership skill that was the most important aspect.
Yeah, what I've realized is it's not the hard skills, it's the soft skills that really make a difference. And here's where, for years, people have done MBAs, with all due respect to people doing MBAs, right? But there's been a lot of hard skill learning. How do you do spreadsheets? How do you do a budget? How do you create an organizational flow chart, and so on and so forth? Hard skills, stuff that really is just, put pen to paper. The soft skills is actually where leadership happens. So the definition of transformational leadership is to produce change and build lives, and you do it through authenticity, inspiration, empathy, and innovation. They are all soft skills, and they make a profound difference. The faculty that I lead could care less whether I can organize a budget. Now my leader cares that I can organize a budget.
A little bit, right?
but my team could care less. On the empathy side, in the middle of a pandemic, they want to know that I can listen, care, and respond. That's empathy. Simple as that. Am I listening? Am I caring? Am I responding? On the inspiration side right now, they want to know, can I clarify? Can I compensate and can I celebrate? Because that's how I inspire them, by clarifying where we are and where we're going, by giving them that kind of sense of where we're going right now, by compensating them appropriately, not always financially. Not everybody wants money. Some people just need a note, a handwritten note. This is how they get inspired. So compensation shouldn't always be thought of in financial terms. And then celebration, even in the middle of a difficult season, can I help them celebrate? And they're all soft skills. That's the core of inspiration. It's casting a vision, but it's not just saying it over and over. It's saying it so as to provide clarity to those that I'm leading. So what I've discovered is the hard skills are necessary, but the soft skills are supremely more important, which means that an MA in leadership, such as you did, April, becomes something that I'm completely sold out on. And I think it has value in every setting.
Well, and anyone that's considering your particular program, the key that I really loved about it is that, and I think you probably have a couple programs you're involved in that aspect of it. Yet in the MA in leadership, it was the personal life of the leader, the professional life of the leader, and the biblical life of the leader, and how they integrate that and live it out. I mean, Carla, who we interviewed for the podcast, was that spiritual discipline class, powerful opportunities, just pieces of adding to all the different phases of leadership. And I think that's really the wrap-up question for you. And then you can share anything else that's really on your heart. Okay. There's so many different filters happening right now that people are looking through. And I mean, it's just our world is in quite a season, right? And each of us as leaders gets an opportunity to not only understand what transformational leadership is, we get to empower it, we get to inspire it. I love the way you say, and we get to be authentic and recognize, what, there are areas that we're still learning and we're still growing. And I love that authenticity that you shared with that. And that's going to be true for all of us. And I'm curious, as you're addressing those filters, as you're, just pouring into the individuals you get to lead and the people that are listening with us today, how do you help individuals really be able to see from those filters and to really open themselves up to the willingness to see what areas they could have more growth in?
I have a very positive view of everybody.
Me too.
I think we know what we know what we need when we see it. And I don't think very many of us resist growth or resist learning. Sometimes we just don't know what we need to grow in or what we need to learn. And so I don't ever feel like I've got to beat this drum hard. When I talk about authenticity and I say, hey, the research shows that transparency, integrity, and humility, which are parts of what I can define as the pieces of authenticity. So transparency, humility, integrity. If I told you that the research all says that the level 5 leaders, the best leaders in the world, all reflect these things, you don't even need to know about the research. You just know that the most important leaders in your life were people with transparency, humility, and integrity. And you're going to go, yeah, they influence. I listened to them. And so I want to say, hey, as a leader, don't dismiss the importance of that. That's part of the authentic you. Embrace that. Look for ways to grow in those areas. If I was on the far end, the 4 pillars of this thing, the authenticity, inspiration, empathy, innovation, I'd say, hey, on the innovation end, encourage people to take ownership of projects, allow for failure, take risks and allow for failure. And we're all going to go, oh, I loved it when someone did that for me.
Absolutely.
So this is rocket science. But what it is, it's saying, hey, you can read 50 books on leadership. And unless at some point you really embrace a model of leadership, and I feel passionately about this, you'll just have 50 books of leadership that have added to the confusion. And I've actually read 50 books on leadership.
Me too.
and it can be very confusing. It's like, okay, so which model? And in the midst of that lack of clarity, we embrace no model, which is to say that you and I and our listeners spend 40 years of their life just trying to get people to do what they want to get done without genuinely being transformational leaders. So I can lay every other model aside. Many of them feed into this anyway, and just say, no, this, every day I'm thinking about this. I come to work today with this team, today with this person. How can I be more authentic, inspiring, empathetic, or innovative? And because my goal is to produce change and build lives, not the lives of students only, but the lives of the team that I have oversight of. And I want their best as well. And if I just have that attitude every time I come into the workplace, how about that attitude every time I go back home? It is truly transformational. And that's why we call it transformational leadership.
And you lead it by such an amazing example. I have listened, the 5 levels of leadership. There's, as you said, there's so many authors that have so many different ways of describing it, and we've read them all, right? And yet owning that at that level and just being as the leader that you lead by example, and you are a living example of that. I loved also as you own the pillars that you, it's ingrained. It is obvious that it's not something you had to read. It's ingrained in your thoughts. It's a constant filter that you look through, and I appreciate you sharing that. Is there anything final wrap up that you would like to share as we say goodbye to our audience and appreciate them listening and sharing their thoughts on our comments? We deeply appreciate your time.
We started by asking the question, what makes it important? And I would just say to our listeners and viewers, hey, if there is a stirring in your heart to be a leader, lean into it. Lean into it, because the people around you need this from you now more than ever. And it is a quest worth taking. And if some of the things we've talked about are beneficial, well and good, but lean into this in a way that produces change and builds the lives of everybody around you.
It is, and to be seeking for the opportunities around them to surround themselves with the tools to learn what transformation is in that leadership. I love that. You did an amazing job of infusing. We'll have to go back and write down all the things you shared through the video. It was perfect. You're always a joy, David. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the gift of your wisdom. And we look forward to seeing and crossing paths with you again.
Yeah, thanks, April. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Always. Talk to you soon. Bye, David.